In Nairobi, Aking worked day and night as a nurse. She woke up before sunrise, treated patients all day, and sometimes stayed late in the hospital to cover extra shifts. But every payday the story was the same. Her parents would snatch her entire salary. "We raised you, so you owe us," they told her. They laughed as they spent her hard-earned money, while she walked home in old, torn shoes, pretending not to care. Deep inside, Aking felt the sting. She wanted freedom. She wanted dignity. But she didn't argue. Instead, she kept her dreams quiet. At night, when everyone was asleep, she sat by the dim light of her phone, building something of her own. She started an online clinic app, investing small amounts each month. It was slow at first, just a few patients booking consultations. But Aking was patient. She kept going, learning, connecting with doctors, and slowly her little idea began to grow. Months turned into years. Her parents still mocked her, saying, "Look at you, still poor. What do you have to show for your work?" But Aking only smiled. She knew her day would come. That day arrived at a family gathering. Relatives filled the room with laughter and gossip. Once again, her parents mocked her for being the poor nurse with nothing. But before she could be humiliated again, Aking walked in with a group of investors behind her. She stood tall and announced, "I am the founder of the fastest-growing health startup in Nairobi." The room went silent. Gasps filled the air. The same people who once laughed now stared in shock. Tears filled Aking's eyes, but this time they were tears of triumph. In Kampala, Lydia worked as a teacher, a job she loved deeply. Every day she stood in front of her students with pride, but when payday came, that pride was stolen. Her parents demanded her salary the moment she stepped through the door. "We need it to support the family," they said firmly, never giving her a choice. Lydia never argued. She handed over the money every month, then walked quietly to her small room, sometimes wondering if her hard work meant anything at all. But Lydia was not foolish. She had another small stream of income, something her parents didn't know about. After school hours, she tutored children in the neighborhood. At first it was just 2 or 3 kids and the pay was very little. But Lydia saved every shilling she could. She kept her secret account hidden, building it slowly, patiently, year after year. She endured the mockery of her parents who often said, "Look at you, still with nothing to your name." She swallowed her pain in silence. 5 years passed. While her parents thought she had nothing, Lydia had quietly saved enough to buy plots of land under her own name. She visited the land secretly, walking through the soil with a heart full of gratitude, knowing her hard work had not been in vain. Then came Christmas dinner. The whole family gathered, laughter filling the room, plates full of food. But as always, her parents couldn't resist mocking her. "Lydia works so hard but has nothing," her mother sneered, and her father chuckled in agreement. Relatives joined in, shaking their heads as if she was a failure. Lydia stayed calm. When the table grew quiet, she reached into her bag and pulled out a neat pile of documents. Without a word, she slid them across the table. The room went silent as curious eyes scanned the papers. One by one, her relatives realized what they were holding: land titles. Lydia looked straight at her parents and said softly, "These are mine. Every plot, every document is in my name." The air changed instantly. The laughter stopped. The very people who mocked her now sat speechless. Her parents stared, unable to find words. Lydia's heart pounded, but she held her head high. For the first time, she was not the weak daughter who handed over her salary. She was the woman who had quietly built her own future. That Christmas, the silence at the table was louder than any insult she had ever endured, and Lydia finally tasted victory. In Accra, Efua worked hard every day at her job, but she never truly touched her own money. The moment her salary came in, her parents demanded her bank card. They used it for expensive clothes, weekend parties, and things that had nothing to do with survival. Efua would watch them leave the house dressed in luxury, while she walked around in old, fading dresses. And still they mocked her. "You are useless," they said. "Without us you would have nothing." Each word cut deep, but Efua kept her head down. She knew fighting back would only bring more pain. What they didn't know was that Efua carried a fire inside her. At night, after long days, she sat in her tiny room with only her laptop's glow for light. She started teaching herself coding, line by line, mistake after mistake, pushing herself to learn. It wasn't easy. She cried many nights when the code didn't work, when exhaustion hit her, when she felt alone. But she refused to give up. Slowly, her skills grew. She built a small app, then improved it, then dreamed bigger. That dream became a fintech platform, one designed to solve real financial problems. Investors abroad saw her potential and reached out. She signed deals quietly, building something far bigger than anyone could imagine. Years later, her parents still mocked her. At a big family gathering with relatives filling the house, her father laughed loudly and said, "Our Efua? She has no future. She can't even keep her own salary." The room joined in with chuckles. Efua felt her chest tighten, but this time she didn't bow her head. The doors opened and she walked in, not alone, but with a team of lawyers and investors by her side. The room fell into silence. She looked around, her voice steady and calm. "You called me useless," she said. "But today, I stand here as the CEO of the fastest-growing fintech company in Accra. And it is worth millions." The relatives gasped. Some dropped their glasses in shock. Her parents froze, their faces drained of color. The same girl they mocked now stood taller than any of them could ever dream. Tears filled Efua's eyes, but they were not tears of pain anymore. They were tears of victory. In that moment, everyone realized. The useless girl they dismissed had built an empire right under their noses. And the silence that followed was worth more than all the years of stolen salaries. In Harare, Toriro worked as a bank teller, smiling at customers every day while carefully counting other people's money. But when payday came, she never got to enjoy her own hard work. Her parents collected her paycheck the same day it arrived. They gave her only a few coins for transport and left her with nothing else. "You live under our roof, so your money belongs to us," they said. Toriro never argued, but inside her heart ached. She wanted to build her own life, yet every month she was stripped of the chance. Still, Toriro was patient and clever. While her parents thought she had nothing, she quietly started investing in small farming projects. It began with a small chicken project and later expanded to vegetables and maize. She partnered with people she trusted, used small profits to grow bigger, and slowly her investments turned into something much more powerful. She never spoke of it at home. She let them believe she was still the poor daughter with nothing. Then came her brother's wedding, a grand event filled with family, neighbors, and laughter. The music played loudly, the tables were full of food, and everyone was in high spirits. But in the middle of all the celebration, her parents found a way to humiliate her. "Toriro never contributes enough," her mother announced, her voice cutting through the hall. Her father added with a laugh, "She earns money but brings nothing home. Useless child." Guests laughed along, shaking their heads at her. Toriro's hands trembled as she stood, but her voice was calm. "Is that what you think of me?" she asked. She reached into her bag and pulled out a neat folder. The room went quiet as she spread the documents on the table. "These are the ownership papers," she said. "I now own 3 commercial farms in Mashonaland. Every seed planted, every harvest, belongs to me." Gasps filled the hall. Guests leaned forward to look at the documents, whispering in disbelief. Some clapped, others stared in shock. Her parents' faces fell, their pride crushed in front of everyone. Toriro, who they mocked and drained for years, had quietly built a fortune. That day, the laughter turned to silence, and Toriro finally stood tall, her dignity shining brighter than any wedding decoration in the room. In Lagos, Amaka worked hard at her office job, but every month her salary never stayed with her. The moment she got paid, her parents demanded the money and handed most of it to her younger brother, the golden child of the family. He lived in comfort, always dressed in the latest clothes, while Amaka wore the same old outfits to work. Her parents told her, "Your brother has a future. You're just here to help." Those words cut deep, but she swallowed her pain and kept quiet. At home, Amaka pretended to be helpless, the obedient daughter who gave away everything. But at night, when the house grew silent, she opened her small laptop and began sketching. She had always loved fashion, drawing dresses and outfits since she was a teenager. Now she turned that passion into something real. She started designing clothes, searching for fabric, and connecting with tailors online. Slowly, she built an online fashion brand. Orders trickled in at first, but she stayed consistent. She took photos, promoted her designs on social media, and used the little profits to reinvest. Her parents never suspected. To them, she was still the poor girl with no vision. Months passed, and her brand grew. Influencers began wearing her designs, customers posted pictures, and her name started circulating in Lagos's fashion circles. Then came the breakthrough. A top mall reached out to her with a contract to stock her brand in their stores. Amaka signed it quietly, tears of joy streaming down her face. The same girl her family dismissed had just entered the big leagues. The real test came during a large family gathering. Relatives filled the house, food and laughter everywhere. As always, her mother couldn't resist mocking her. "Look at Amaka," she said loudly. "Still nothing to show for her hard work. She'll end up with nothing while her brother shines." Everyone laughed, and Amaka felt that familiar sting in her chest. But this time she was ready. The room fell into silence when she walked in, dressed in a stunning gown of her own design. The cut, the fabric, the elegance. It was clear this was no ordinary dress. Whispers filled the air. Where did she get that? Who made it? Amaka raised her chin, her voice steady. "This," she said, pointing to the label on her dress, "is my brand. And yesterday, I signed a contract with one of the biggest malls in Lagos." Cameras flashed as relatives pulled out their phones, stunned by her transformation. Her spoiled brother looked away, her parents froze, and the laughter died instantly. Amaka had gone from being ignored to being the star of the night, and for the first time she felt the world clap for her, not against her. In Kigali, Keza worked as an accountant, carefully handling other people's money every day. She was disciplined, smart, and hardworking. But when it came to her own salary, she never had control. Every month, her parents took it from her, saying, "You are too young to manage money. We know what's best." They gave her only a little pocket money, just enough to survive. Keza felt like a guest in her own life, earning but never truly owning. But deep inside, she carried a quiet determination. She wanted freedom, and she wanted to prove to herself that she could build something without their control. So she came up with a plan. From the little allowances she got, she began saving secretly. She cut down on every expense, walking instead of taking taxis, eating simple meals, and hiding small coins. Eventually, she gathered enough to invest in something small, a motorbike for transport. She partnered with a trusted rider, and little by little, the money grew. One motorbike turned into 2, then 5, then 10. Keza stayed silent, letting her parents believe she was still helpless. Years passed, and her business kept growing. She registered it, expanded her fleet, and eventually built the largest ride-hailing motorbike network in Kigali. Her company employed dozens of young men and women, giving them steady income. Keza had built an empire in secret, but she never said a word to her family. Then came her father's birthday. The house was full of guests, music, and laughter. Relatives brought expensive gifts, watches, wines, clothes. When it was Keza's turn, her parents smirked. "Our daughter is always broke," her mother said loudly. "She can't even afford a proper gift." Laughter spread across the room, and Keza felt every eye on her. But instead of lowering her head, she smiled. She reached into her bag, pulled out a pair of car keys, and placed them on the table. The room went quiet. "Happy birthday, Papa," she said softly. "This car is from me. And by the way, I am the owner of the biggest ride-hailing motorbike fleet in Kigali." Gasps filled the air. Guests turned to each other in shock, whispering her name. Phones came out, cameras clicked. Her parents froze, their pride collapsing in front of everyone. The girl they controlled, the one they mocked for being too young, had just revealed herself as a powerful businesswoman. The laughter was gone, replaced with stunned silence. And Keza finally stood tall, no longer the child they dictated to, but the woman who built her own empire. In Lusaka, Chipo worked hard every day at her job, but her life never changed. Every month when her salary came in, her parents demanded it all. They said it was to pay off debts, but she never saw anything improve. The bills were still piling, the house was still struggling, and Chipo herself often went to bed hungry. She would smile faintly when her stomach growled, pretending it didn't hurt. Her parents never cared. You should be grateful, they told her. At least you can help. But Chipo had dreams. She loved baking since she was a child, and though she had nothing, she still had her skill. One evening, with the last bit of money she had managed to hide, she bought flour, sugar, and eggs. She baked a simple cake, posted it online, and sold it to a neighbor. The next week she made another. Slowly, her small side hustle began to grow. She worked long nights, baking while the world slept, carefully hiding her earnings in a secret account. Months turned into years, and her little business blossomed. People loved her cakes, and word spread quickly. Orders came in through social media, her page filled with likes, comments, and glowing reviews. She saved enough to rent a small shop, then another. Her bakery became more than just cakes, it became a brand. Then came Easter lunch. The house was full of relatives, the table heavy with food. But even on that holy day, her parents couldn't resist shaming her. Look at Chipo, her mother said loudly. Still broke, still with nothing to her name. Laughter followed. Chipo sat quietly, her heart racing, but this time she was ready. She lifted her phone and opened her bakery's page. She turned the screen to the room and said, "Broke? This is my business." The relatives leaned in, their eyes widening at the thousands of followers, the glowing customer reviews, the photos of her shop's opening. Gasps filled the room. Some clapped, others whispered in disbelief. Her parents froze, their mocking smiles disappearing. Chipo's eyes filled with tears, not of shame but of triumph. For the first time, she wasn't the hungry, helpless daughter. She was the proud owner of one of Lusaka's fastest-rising bakeries. The silence that followed was sweeter than any cake she had ever baked. In Dakar, Aissatou worked hard every single day, but her effort never truly belonged to her. Each month, when her salary came in, her parents demanded it. Women shouldn't control money, they told her. Your job is to obey. Aissatou lowered her eyes and nodded, never arguing. Outwardly, she looked like the quiet daughter who had nothing, but inside, her heart burned with determination. She knew she wanted more. She wanted to live with dignity, to prove that she could stand on her own. So secretly she began trading goods. At first, it was very small. She bought fabric from one city and sold it in another. She traveled quietly, often on crowded buses, carrying heavy bags herself. The profits were tiny, but she saved every coin. With time, she expanded into food products, then electronics. Each trip grew bigger, each deal smarter. Aissatou was building something her parents could not imagine. Years passed, and her small business grew into a strong network. She started working with truck drivers, then wholesalers, until one day she had enough money to buy her first warehouse. Then another. Soon she wasn't just trading, she was controlling supply. By the time she was in her late 20s, Aissatou was quietly supplying goods to half the markets in Dakar. But to her parents, she was still the poor girl with nothing. She let them believe that, waiting for the right moment. That moment came at her cousin's engagement party. The family was gathered, music played, food filled the tables, and everyone was laughing. But as always, her parents found a way to humiliate her. "Look at Aissatou," her father said loudly. "She works and works, but still has nothing to show." Laughter spread across the room, her mother shaking her head as if she were a failure. Aissatou stood slowly, her calm smile hiding the storm inside. She picked up the microphone meant for announcements. "Since everyone is talking about what I don't have," she said, "let me show you what I do have." She signaled to one of her staff, who brought in a projector. Photos lit up the wall. Her warehouses, her delivery trucks, her teams at work. Gasps filled the air as she continued. "I am the supplier for more than half of Dakar's markets. The goods you buy every day. Many of them pass through my warehouses first." The room fell silent. Relatives stared in shock, some clapping slowly, others too stunned to speak. Her parents' smiles disappeared, their pride crumbling. Isata stood tall, her voice steady. For years they drained her, mocked her, silenced her. But now, the whole family saw her for who she truly was. A powerful businesswoman who had built an empire in silence. In Addis Ababa, Hannah worked long shifts at a hotel, smiling at guests, carrying luggage, and answering questions with patience. The salary wasn't much, but even that little never stayed with her. Every month, her parents took it away as soon as it arrived. "You live under our roof, so your money is ours," they said. Hannah had no choice but to hand it over, watching her hard work vanish before her eyes. But there was one thing her parents didn't know. Hannah often received small tips from grateful tourists. A few coins here, a folded note there. Instead of spending it, she tucked it away carefully. With time, the money grew, and she used it to buy books and pay for small courses in tourism. She studied quietly, learning everything about travel management, guiding, and even foreign languages. At night, while her parents slept, she dreamed of one day running her own company. Years passed, and Hannah built her vision step by step. She networked with guides, partnered with drivers, and finally registered her own travel company. She designed brochures, built a website, and organized tours for visitors. Slowly, her company gained attention. But at home, her parents still saw her as the broke daughter, someone who would never succeed. Then came a family reunion. The hall was full of relatives, laughter, and chatter. In the middle of it, her parents decided to mock her once again. "Look at Hannah," her father said loudly. "She works all day but has nothing to show." The room erupted in laughter, cousins shaking their heads at her as if she were a failure. Hannah's heart raced. But this time she didn't stay silent. She reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of glossy brochures. She laid them on the table for everyone to see. On the cover, bold letters read, "Hannah Tours. Discover Ethiopia with us." The room fell quiet. Relatives picked up the brochures, flipping through pictures of buses, tour packages, and happy travelers. "I own this company," Hannah said firmly. "It's fully registered, and we already have bookings for the next season." Gasps filled the room. The same relatives who mocked her now leaned forward, their voices changing instantly. "Can you hire me? Do you need a driver? Can I join your team?" Her parents sat frozen, their laughter gone. And Hannah, for the first time, smiled with pride. She was no longer the helpless hotel worker. They were now witnessing the businesswoman she had fought to become. At her sister's wedding in Gaborone, everyone was smiling and celebrating except Naledi. She sat quietly at the corner table, her hands folded in her lap. For years, her parents had taken her income, saying it was her duty to pay for her brother's school and university. She never argued, never complained. She worked long hours, watched her salary vanish into their hands, and listened silently when they told her she was selfish for wanting to keep even a small amount for herself. They believed she was weak. They believed she was poor. But Naledi had been patient. While they drained her money, she had started investing secretly in cryptocurrency. She spent late nights reading, learning, and watching her small investments grow. Month after month, year after year, she built something they had no idea about. Now, in the middle of the wedding reception, her mother's sharp voice cut through the music. "Naledi is such a failure. What do you even have to show for yourself?" "Nothing." The hall went silent for a moment. Guests turned to look at her. Her brothers smirked. Her father shook his head like he was ashamed of her. Naledi just smiled softly, stood up, and walked to the projector. "Since you all want to know what I have," she said calmly, her voice steady but strong, "let me show you." She tapped her phone, and the screen lit up with numbers. Her crypto wallet balance. The hall gasped. The figures were in millions. People jumped from their chairs. Her uncles clapped their hands to their mouths. Her cousins cheered in disbelief. "Naledi!" her aunt shouted, almost fainting. Suddenly, the girl they had mocked was the richest person in the room. Her parents sat frozen, their faces pale, unable to speak. All their years of control, all their years of mockery, crumbled in one moment. The same family who had called her a failure now stared at her like she was untouchable. Naledi just smiled again and said, "I wasn't the failure, you were the blind ones." And the hall erupted in cheers louder than the wedding music.